Hello, everyone. We're going to give everybody just a minute to get in the room and get settled. It's now the top of the hour. We'll get started in just 1 minute. Before we get started, I figure we can start with some housekeeping. This session is going to be recorded, and so if for any reason you guys have a colleague that may be joining late, or if you need to leave early, we are going to record the session and we'll distribute the recording after the webinar. Um, I am Max Bratt, so I lead our business development team. I'm also based here in Boston and I work directly with companies along the East Coast. And I'm joined today by my colleague Matt.
Thanks, Max. My name is Matt, and I look after business development on the West Coast for Life Science Nation. So we're pleased that you all could join us today.
I'm looking at some of the names that are joining the room, and I believe that a number of us are already registered for RESI, if not, hopefully soon to be registered for RESI. Um, the tips that we're sharing today are going to be a little bit more technical in the sense where we're actually going to go in and just walk through the partnering platform. One, to make sure that everybody knows how to use all of the functions, but also just to give some of our best tips and advice on how to actually make sure that you're using it well. Um, and so I will go ahead and I'll share my screen here in just 1 second. Everyone should have by now, partnering opened yesterday. And so everybody should have by now received an email with login credentials and login instructions to this site, which is Hello Partnering, that we use to manage all of our partnering systems. Um, if you have not received that email, please reach out to either myself or Matt directly, or you can contact us at resi@lifesciencenation.com, and we will make sure that we get you guys those login credentials. So again, if you haven't already received them, please reach out to us and we'll make sure to manually resend them to you. Um, if you go in there and you click on the access link, it will first bring you to this page, which will take you to the Resi San Diego partnering. It will probably prompt you to make a password. I have already made my account, and so it just logs me directly in. But this is going to be the homepage, the very first thing that everybody sees when they log into partnering. And this portal is going to be used to manage your conference, manage both the partnering meeting requests that you guys will have going, as well as all of the programming. And so for those of you who might be first-time Resi attendees, I think it might be helpful to maybe just start with an overview of the conference. Um, it is partnering focused, meaning that these 30-minute meetings are going to be a big chunk of the actual programming at Resi. However, it's not all. We have a impressive lineup of investor panels that are going on throughout the day, as well as entrepreneurial education workshops, and startup pitch opportunities. And so companies are able to pitch as part of our Innovators Pitch Challenge. That is a unique experience because our team, and Matt and I can brag about it because we have nothing to do with the investor judge recruitment. But our team does a phenomenal job of one, they interview every investor who comes to Resi. Um, we do that to one, ensure the validity of the attending investors, right? We want to make sure that each investor is actively representing a fund, that that fund has capital and they're actively deploying it, and most importantly, that they're not there as a vendor. We do have service providers at the event, but they will not be wearing the investor badge. And the second thing that that interview lets us do is it lets us find out exactly where they invest. So for each investor, we know what their fund's technology areas of interest, what indication, modality, check size, all of this key criteria, which we actually use to populate this partnering platform. And so as I go in and I'll spend probably a majority of the time on the search and messenger feature of the partnering platform, but you'll see that area and those areas have been created by our team to actually give you an in-depth look at what each investor does. However, before we do that, we need to start with just simply building the profile. Um, one thing that I will point out here and that I always like to start with is the Biotech Gate Save Your Company profile. For companies who have attended a Resi or any Hello Partnering site partnering event in the past, you may see that your profile is automatically imported. If not, you can always opt in to have it import between events simply by clicking yes here. I recommend it. BiotechGate is a partner of ours, and they actually manage a company database. And so by opting in, you then opt into as well being found in their database, which can be really useful because that database is used by a lot of pharma, by both a lot of pharma and just innovation, R&D, in-source, in-licensors. And so I would recommend opting in. And it also just conveniently allows you to keep your profile saved between events. You'll see that building out your profile is not a huge task, but it's probably enough of a task where you don't necessarily want to do it every time. So I think this just makes it a very convenient thing. The company profile has, or the profile tab has a few different tabs. The first one is going to be the personal profile. This is pretty self-explanatory. You'll have the option here to add a headshot, which I have not done, but I need to. And I always recommend that you do add a headshot in, um, because RESI can be quite the buzzing event. And what I mean by that is there's a lot of attendees. Half of our attendees are entrepreneurs, and the other half are investors. That's probably the best ratio that you'll find in any partnering event. And what that creates is it creates an informal feel in a good way. And what I mean by that is Resi is not a room full of two investors in 100 companies and everyone's waiting to talk to that person. Because it's a 50-50 match, there's actually a lot of ad hoc meetings that take place. And because it's busy, you it helps so that the person that you're meeting with knows what you look like. Um, and we'll have the partnering area set up. And so that way you'll have a table number, but you can also just know who you're going to meet with. And so for that reason, I recommend that you include a headshot. You also have the option to do name, company address, contact, whether it's your cell, your LinkedIn account, and then a background. A common theme that you will see with a lot of what Matt and I are sharing is we recommend that you do as much as possible, even if not all of it will be looked at. It's important to do it because the entire theme of what we can get across, and if you could write down one thing to take away from this webinar, everything you want to do and lead up to the event is to make it as easy as possible for the investor to say yes to a meeting with you. And we will get a little bit more in depth on that as we actually go into the messaging and give some of our best tips on messaging. Um, but the same concept ties in with actually building out your profile. And so I would also recommend having notifications set. Um, these will automatically be set as on. We get this question a lot, um, particularly for the investor side, right? And so notifications are automatically set as on, meaning that as you guys send meeting requests to investors or as they come in, you will also be able to receive email notifications here. And then after building out the personal profile, you can move on to the company portion. Matt, I'll kind of let you walk through what some of these are.
Thanks, Max. I was struggling to find my mute button. Um, these are the profiles of the individual companies that once you land at the portal, what you'll be looking for is to match with one of them. So you'll be reading, how they're categorized, all the information about the account, and then that'll set up how you search for them.
So there's basic features, company name, categorization, like Matt said, how you're actually categorized, and then also a free text of description. You can also come in here and set your goals. So if you're interested in meeting financiers, so in licensors, you can come in here and select, I'm looking for, X amount. This is how much I'm seeking. These are the details, right? If you want to include specifics on whether or not it's maybe a convertible note, is it a safe round? Is it purely equity? Do you have any non-dilutive funding to date? All of that information, this is a really good spot to put it. And same with if you're interested in potential out licensing or in licensing. Um, all of that you can build out in a lot of detail here. Matt, I see we have a question and it's hard for me to see it.
Yeah. Hang on a second.
Also, for
Is
the
there,
attendees, feel free to ask questions as we go.
yeah, so is there a filter for investors that participate virtually?
Yes, you can see the difference between in-person attendees and virtual attendees, and that will display automatically under the company's profile. And so as we actually go in here and we look at specific profiles under the search and attendees feature, I'll make sure to point out where you can
Right.
identify that.
Perfect.
And so before we move on specifically from the company profile, One thing that I also do want to point out in addition is you have the option to again build out in depth your pipeline, right? Whether it's a biotech pipeline of multiple assets or if you have multiple products as a medical device, you can come in here and identify each one. And so for therapeutic name, I'll just say asset one, licensing status, available, as well as a product description. So you can then come in here and let's say you have a platform technology with different indications, different modalities, perhaps. You can come in here and list those out one by one. And so that any investor or licensing partner who wants to see your profile can come in here and not just see what you've written as a description, but they can see all of the assets as part of your pipeline. Um, and again, this can be really, really useful and probably something that is worth doing once and you don't want to do it again. So I will remind you that you can't always save your company profile there. And so all of that information is available under the advanced product financing and management profile, as well as you can also include information on your management team. And so here you'll see all of LSN is already in the partnering system. Um, Anybody who's registered for RESI with you will automatically appear, and they'll actually be linked to your same company profile. However, if there are other KOLs, board of advisory members, advisory board members that you want to make sure to highlight but aren't attending the event, you can always add them manually here. And so you can add them a description on their position. So if it's a KOL that you want to highlight their involvement in the early stages of the project, you can do that here, as well as link some of their socials, their background for credibility, and any remarks and or publications that may be a fit. It gives you the option to add all of that. And so for the most part, the profile feature is pretty intuitive. It's easy to come in here and upload all of this stuff. We always recommend you start with this, both the personal and company, as well as there is also the option to actually upload a company presentation. And so that all of the company presentations will be able to be viewed within the media center. However, to actually upload one, you do it under the profile tab. And so it gives you two options, a recorded company presentation. So if you have maybe a video of you pitching in the past, whether it's an in-person pitch or even just a recorded webinar, you can upload that as well as company slides. Um, you can upload multiple files here, and so it will list multiple files. One tip that we recommend doing is uploading what you have. So whether it is a pitch deck, executive summary, one-page tear sheet, at LSN we've done and we've interacted with thousands of investors, and it's quite funny that nearly one-third of them prefer the pitch deck, one-third of them will prefer the executive summary, and the last third will prefer the one-page tear sheet. Um, and so again, falling into the theme is you never know what an investor is going to prefer to see and how they actually want to gather the data on the company. They don't spend a lot of time doing it. It's the same concept as you hear with a resume. Employers will look at a resume for 10 seconds. Investors will look at your company for a short amount of time and they'll either say, is this a company that's in scope of what I'm looking for, or are they completely out of scope? And part of being in scope and getting a yes to a meeting is making it easy for them to identify that. And so by uploading all of those materials, you've essentially presented it in the best format that they like to see. And so you can upload all of those materials here, as well as, again, any recording. And it does give the requirements of any kind of file you want to upload. And so here you can see if you're going to upload a video, make sure that it's under 500 millibytes, and then the file types that are supported. So after you've built out the profile and uploaded any materials, the next and arguably one of the most important steps that we get questions on every time is the agenda. And so the way that our partnering system works is you will go in here and you will open your agenda for the times that you're available, and investors will do the same. As you send meeting requests and as the meeting requests are accepted, you will not go in and worry about saying, can you meet at this time? Can you meet at this time? It will automatically assign you a time and a location to meet based off of what's available in your agenda. And for that reason, it's important that one of the very first things you do before you even come in here and start sending requests is open your agenda to all applicable times. Um, the system's built out in a way that makes it easy, right? So you have the event time here, which will be UTC -7, so Los Angeles time, as the event is in San Diego. as well as your time. And so because I'm based in Boston, I'm on East Coast time. You can see here 11 a.m. on that Monday, the 22nd. I can come in here and easily just select open all if I want to open my full day of partnering from 8 a.m. until 4:30, so 4:30 to 5 p.m. I can open all of that availability here. And then let's say that there's specific blocks that I want to mark off. Like let's say maybe I'm not a morning person. I don't want to have an 8 a.m. I want to start my day at 9. I can come in here and block off these two. And then I can also come in here and look at the sessions. And so this agenda will continuously be built out as we finalize our program. Um, Here you can see all of the existing investor panels that are going on, right? And so here you'll see 9 a.m. There's an inside pharma partnering panel. If I want to go in here and read more on what that entails, I can simply click more and see it. And so here I can see the description of the panel. As we confirm panelists, we will include that information here. And you can also register directly for that here. Um, you do not need to register in the partnering system for any of these given sessions if you want to attend. You can always just show up that day. But if it is a session that you really want to prioritize, we recommend you do it just because it will then add it to your agenda, and therefore no meetings could then be slotted in during this time. And so, just as one final check of making sure that your agenda stays open at that time, we do recommend adding it. Um, for any company that's signed up to pitch, once we confirm those sessions, the pitch deadline is this Friday. After we confirm all of the pitching companies and the timing of their session, we will go in here and we'll automatically fill in your session so that you're not assigned a meeting at a time that you're supposed to be pitching. Um, and you will be able to see all of the session descriptions and all of the pitching companies here. You can come see, set the schedule for Monday. It's easy to do it for Tuesday, and then Wednesday, the 24th, the 29th, and the 30th. And so, Matt, I'll let you comment on the layout of RESI because as you can see, we've got one day in person and then there's other days as well.
Sure. Thanks, Max. So there's ample opportunity to arrange meetings with investors, and we're not limiting you to the in-day event at the conference. So there's a total of 5 days available for you to schedule partnering meetings. Um, there is one day in person. Everybody, I think, would agree that the in-person events give you much better advantage to, read body language and receive feedback from the investors than, doing it online. However, there are 4 additional days which you can use to schedule as you see fit as well. Um, so that's how we manage the availability of partnering throughout the week, really.
And I will say that specifically for this event, San Diego, it is going on consecutively with Bio. And so I know a lot of people will be in San Diego for Bio at that time. You can always block off your calendar on that Monday in the Bio partnering and so that your Resi partnering can fill. We
Right.
also have extended the partnering into the next week. And so it's not just the consecutive days now. With the 29th and 30th, it also gives you the option to, one, take advantage of convention week in San Diego, and then travel home and extend your partnering into the following week. Um, Another technical thing that I will point out with partnering on these days is we do have a lot of investors that are joining us from around the world. Some of them may be virtual only. That encompasses South America, European investors, as well as Asia Pacific investors. And so please be very cautious with your timing. Here you can see the virtual days gives you the option to do a 24-hour clock, meaning you can have your agenda open at any hour of the day. People probably don't want to be taking meetings at 3:30 in the morning. Um, so I would recommend coming in here when you open your agenda, be very diligent that you've closed off the times that are the middle of the night. That way you don't end up getting a lot of meetings booked that you then have to reschedule or cancel just because of timing differences. And that is true both of your own agenda as well as any of your colleagues. And so for those companies out there that may be attending with more than one person, um, again, some of our innovators pitch challenge companies. The IPC track allows you to bring two attendees. And so if you are a pitching company with more than one attendee coming, you can see your colleagues' agendas here. And so if I came in here and I clicked on Matt's agenda, I can see he still has all of his availability closed. And so again, in the partnering system, it will look for mutual availability amongst all delegates. And so this is something that every RESI we see is a delegate will come in here and email us and say, "Hi, my agenda is open, and I've booked a meeting with an investor who's accepted it. However, it can't find mutual availability." And then we will go in and we will look, and it's because they've included a colleague with them that has not opened their agenda at all. And so I cannot stress this enough. If you are attending with somebody, please make sure that you have both gone in there and opened up your agendas. Otherwise, you may run into issues actually scheduling with the investors. And there are issues that we can solve, but we don't want, there to be a weird time difference where it takes us an hour to solve it, and now that time has been booked. And just to make sure that you can get as many meetings as possible, please clear this before it becomes an issue. Um, you can also print your agenda and your schedule, both as a physical document, like a physical piece of paper, as well as you can export it into your Outlook schedule so that you can manage it in the email. One thing that we recommend is don't do that until a little bit closer to the event because this schedule will automatically update and change. But if you've imported it into Outlook, it won't automatically update. And so if a meeting for some reason gets canceled or changed the time of, yes, it will update here, but no, it will not update outside of this partnering system. And so please be sure that when the time comes and you're ready for actual partnering, you can then do it. But I would not recommend doing it too far in advance. Um, This is one option to view it. There's also is in the agenda in a calendar visibility. You can also go in here, and if I were to have a lot of meetings sent out, you can also see it blocked off chronologically. But same information, just different manners in which you can view it. Perfect. The next part is the most important. And so, Matt, I will let you give just maybe the quick introduction into how we recommend you go about searching for investors. But Matt, I'm going to need you to come off of mute.
Yeah, that would help, wouldn't it? So, is there a way for me to control the screen, or should I just
No, maybe you can just walk through.
yeah. Um, Max, I'm going to kick it back to you. I think
Sorry, I set you up for failure there. What I will start with is by saying, and this is zooming out a lot. If it's not clear, Matt and I are far from scientists. We come from a business development sales background, and the beauty of that is when you start fundraising as a company and step into the CEO role or the chief of BD role, you are doing the exact same thing. And so fundraising is and always will be BD and sales. And what I mean by that is you can boil it down to saying, I need to first get a list of investors. And I need to canvas that list to see who's actually a fit for my product, my technology, stage of development, check size, all of this key criteria, and then talk to those people. And so the very first step is canvassing that list. And so you can come in here, you can see all of the investors here. And this will show you that all of the unique investment firms that are currently registered. But the way that we recommend doing it is by filtering. So you can come in here, and again, our research team has interviewed each of the attending investors to find this information. And so for the sake of this demo, let's say I am a small molecule therapeutic company that is creating, an oncology drug. I can come in here and say, based off of sector, show me all biotech investors that are interested in, and I can select small molecules specifically as a modality. Under therapeutic area interest, here I can do indication. So I think I said oncology based. Oncology we have. I'll scroll through this a little slowly if people want to just get a quick view at some of the filters that we use. You have the option biotech, all therapeutics. We have medical technology, which will encompass devices, as well as diagnostics, actually. And then health tech is going to be more specifically for digital health components. For areas of interest, indications, we have quite a range, right? So everything from cardiovascular, disease of the eye, ear, all CNS will fold under nervous system. The same is true with neurology. So all neurology, brain-based disease indications will fold up under CNS. Um, and then we do have oncology. So for the sake of my demo, I will say I'm an oncology company with development phase. Let's say I'm preclinical phase one. Um, we recommend selecting the two. So, and what I mean by that is if you are currently preclinical and the use of funds of your current fundraise, so if I'm raising $10 million to get through IND and launch my phase one clinical trial, I will select not just preclinical, where I am, but phase one, where I will get to with the funding that I receive. And so we recommend you select the two and then geographical area of interest as well. So let's say I'm a global USA. USA, this is going to be where the investor has expressed interest in investing. So if I'm a company based in the US, that's easy to select. And then we always recommend selecting global as well, because this opens the door to any investor that's essentially told us, we don't care where the company is based, we're opportunistic and we're open anywhere. And so selecting the two will get you all the investors that have expressed interest in your specific region. And so that is typically a good enough of a first pass for us to come in here and search. And you can see here's 40 of the unique investment firms that are joined and that match this specific criteria. So right now we are 8 weeks out of partnering. This is actually the earliest that, or 8 weeks out of the event, which is the earliest we've ever opened partnering. But we know that people are going to start logging in here and building out their profiles early. However, a lot of our investors are still yet to sign up, and even less of them are less to be active in here. And so, as I move into the messaging, one thing that I want to just instill reality in is everybody does partnering later than you expect. We have seen it from each RESI to each RESI. Roughly 80% of the total meetings that get booked at RESI will come within the last 2 weeks. Um, and so that's important to keep in mind as we move into the messaging feature. But for now, I want to just finish scrolling through and showing you guys what comes up when you run the search results. So here you can see out of the 40 results, you can view them all here. If I come in and click in on one of these profiles, you'll see all of the different components that we track. Um, this first tab is going to just be the overview of the company. And so here you'll see the brief company description, um, essentially the filtering tools that they've provided us so that we can make sure they're a match for. So the therapeutic sectors, and then the type of investor. That's going to all fold up under the company. Under this investor details tab, you will have access to the a brief view of the description, but all of this information folds up under our Premier Partnering. And so if you had purchased the Premier Partnering add-on, you'll be able to see this investor mandate. And a mandate is the terminology that we use. Essentially, it means what is their thesis, and most importantly, what is the interview that we've conducted with them. And so, Matt, I'll let you talk about how our research team conducts these interviews, and then the information that we track within the investor mandate. Matt, I need you to come off mute.
I got all excited and I started talking. So the investors are the investors that attend the Resi shows are from the LSN database, which is a curated collection of over 3,700 investment companies. And they share a couple of things in common. One is that the only way that you can get into the database is if you sit for an interview, as Max had mentioned, with one of our investment analysts. And along the way, they gather all this information. So by the time you reach this tab, the tab he's got selected as investor details, you're beginning to understand a lot about the company. You're beginning to understand what markets they like to invest in, where, and more importantly, how much. So you can begin to take a very daunting task and quickly make it quite narrow. And in the case of Resi, it's narrower still because you want to build a global target list and then you want to narrow it down to the people that you want to meet, and then you want to have the way to meet them. And that's exactly what Max is taking you through right here. So Max, if you could go back up and we'll continue the tour of the four tabs, I suppose. So what do you just described was the allocation information, and if you go just if you could scroll up just a bit.
Scroll up or down. Sorry.
Well, there's only one way. So so then you can see the capital structure and you begin to get more and more familiar. So your search becomes less broad and more narrow. And then you can see the investment interest and you'll have to match with the indication and the sectors. But after that, you say, yeah, this is certainly if they were to fund a company like mine, it's because my indication matches the check size matches and for whatever reason, I like the region that they're in. So I'm going to set a meeting. I'm going to try to set a meeting with them. So it's a very precise way to get appropriate meetings for you at RESI.
Yeah. And so in the actual profile here, like the written version, you can see the allocation information will touch not just on what does their overall funds look like, but what is their typical ticket, sectors and subsectors of interest. This is also visible down here in the filtering system, but what technology areas of interest are they open to preclinical, what stage, and then company and management team requirements. This touches on do they lead? Do they syndicate? Are they open to either? Do they take a board seat? If they have expressed to us any specific criteria here, it will be listed. Um, However, with the Premier partnering, you can see not just the full profile, but you can also see the delegate information and most importantly, their contact information. And so if you want to maybe reach out ahead of time and say, hi, I'm going to be at Resi, let's meet. Or if you weren't able to get a hold of them at Resi, follow up with them after partnering. This provides you the opportunity to do so. And for whoever asked the question earlier, you can also see who's attending virtually only versus who's attending in person. And so here, there's a red button that says virtual. If they were going to be attending in person, you'd see a blue tab that says in person. And so you can also, outside of just viewing their profile, you can also come in here and either from this location or directly on their profile, send the meeting request if you want to go through one by one and send the request in that way. Another thing that we see people do is go in here and simply star all of the investors that they want to reach out to, and then do a coordinated set of outreach, maybe at one given time, rather than doing it one by one. And so it is possible for you to go in here, search through the investors, star those that you think are a fit, and then come back to them later. And so again, this is a search for investors. You can download these results into Excel. You can also come in here, refine the search, run a new one if you'd like. Um, or if you've decided that what I have is good and I'm now ready to start messaging those starred investors, I can come up and right next to my name here in the top right, there's a star. If I click on that, it will take me to all of those that I've bookmarked. And so I can then come in here and send the requests only to those that I've bookmarked this way as well. So when you send a meeting request, and I'll come in here now and I'll go and find somebody to send a request to. So if I were to come in here and say, let's search for investors, see all investors. Let's do Alumni Ventures and send a message to Charlie, yay, and say, subject, first request, intro to Life Science Nation. And so this is a concept that we've developed, and it's what we call a series of four follow-ons, and it's our four message approach. Um, at RESI and at any partnering event, well, here's a rule of thumb. Throughout all partnering events in life sciences, there's typically about a 10% response rate, and it will always be the entrepreneur who messages the investor. You guys will always have to be the one to message the investor first, and most times you will not get a response. At RESI, we tend to hover a little bit above the industry average. So there's typically a response rate of 15 to 20%, but it's still not 100. It's still the minority. And so what we found is that one, sending a first message is important, but sending a series of follow-ons is almost more important because it highly increases the likelihood of you actually getting a response. And so what we recommend is you send a series of 4 follow-ups. The first one is an introduction to the company, where you give a high-level overview of here's my technology, here's how we're different, here's some key IP, and just touch on each of the key criteria without going too far into depth on any of them. And so you should literally put first request in the subject line. In the message, you can include the body of the text. It gives you the opportunity to change the priority. Um, in most cases, we don't find this as being very relevant in actually impacting the likelihood of getting the meeting. You can always leave it blank. But we do recommend you always send your contact details. And so if you've linked your details, meaning your email address, LinkedIn URL to your profile, you can always send those in each message here, as well as attach other users that you want to send the message to. I'm going to say sending as test and send it with Matt. And so you can then send the request directly. Here, under the search tab, it will show you any of the investors or companies that you've already sent a request to. So here you can see request exists. Um, this is useful because if you want to go in there, and like I said, with the series of 4, we typically recommend sending the first message between 3 weeks to 2 weeks out of the event. There are still a lot of investors that will sign up between that point and the actual conference. And so one thing you can do is when you run the search, you can also filter it down to only show you users and investors that have been added at a given time. So the event is going to be June 22nd. Let's hypothetically imagine that it's mid-May, and I want to come back in and look at partnering and say, okay, only show me investors that have been added maybe the week of May 18th through the 22nd and apply that criteria. Of course, if I ran that search now, I wouldn't find anything, but I can always do that to see, okay, who are the new investors that have been added and do that here. And so before fully moving on to the messenger, I know, and I think looking by the audience, a lot of the people here are going to be companies. So I'm assuming that you guys will primarily be looking for investors. But if you are looking to meet either with other companies, there's also similar filtering systems that way that you can use to identify some of the startups, whether they're pitching or a sponsor, if you're looking for a vendor. As well as you can also, and this is more useful for investors themselves, but search by specific assets. So if investors are very keen on looking for a particular asset, whether in terms of indication or stage of development, they can also search specifically for that here, which is why it's important that you go update that material in your company profile in case you have it. Of course, there's also the option just to view it A to Z by company, as well as A to Z by attending delegates. And so let's say you've gotten to the point now where you've found what you wanted to, you've sent messages, and you want to now go in there and start following up. You can see all of your messaging activity here under the messenger feature. You can also send your requests. It's a little tough because you have to obviously know who you're looking to message. So we would recommend you just do it from the search feature. Um, but all of the messages that you sent out, you can view here. And so in this example that I sent to Charlie, you can see I sent my contact details in the virtual card. This will contain my LinkedIn, my email address so that he has access to it, as well as the message that I sent. And that will come here, right? You can see April 28th is the date that I sent this test message. With the series of 4, Matt, maybe I'll turn it over to you to go a little bit more in depth on what we've seen work well. But again, we send a series of 4 follow-ups, and it really drastically increases your likelihood of actually getting a meeting. And so, Matt, I'll maybe let you walk through a little bit what each of those may look like, how you space them out, and the
Yeah.
importance of doing it that way.
Yeah, so a couple of things. If I could just step back even further, is the objective. You have to remember that the objective of the approach or the email or the message is to secure a meeting. It's not necessarily to sell anything. It's got to be brief and right to the point. And the first one, what we found is that a series of 4 messages strikes the right balance between efficiency and, you can't have the campaign go on forever. At some point, you have to say, well, I think that one is exhausted. And we think that 4 is how that works. And how it works is pretty straightforward. I mean, you could probably guess, but it does take a little discipline. The way it works is you send the first email, I like to tell, in the first in the first message you say, you know, uh, new therapeutic that focuses on, specific oncological uh, uh, findings is found to be 29% more effective and, would love to have a meeting. And they don't respond to you. If they do respond to you, of course, you secure the meeting. On the third try, you say, hey, just getting back to you. This is my second attempt. And then bring up something new, something that makes reference to, have you seen this recent press release? Or there's new science that indicates, this is the way to solve this particular disease. So, and if of course they respond, you set the meeting, and if not, you should go to the third. And the third one is very similar to the second one. And on the fourth one, you say, "This is the last and final time I'm going to reach out to you." And what that does is it has the effect of, if anybody was interested at all, it's sort of like you're taking it away, saying, "Listen, I'm not going to bother you. I don't think that's effective for either one of us. So, just let me know." And they'll indicate at that point. Usually they'll indicate and they'll say, "Hey, I've been meaning to get in touch with you. I've been jammed, or, it was always something that was second to my priority. But if you're no longer going to contact me, I think I'll contact you." And it works pretty effectively. And then after that four-step program, you'll know that you can say, I've reached out to all of my targets, and I'm confident that the ones that are interested, I've collected, and the ones that aren't are, I can let go, and you can move on and start a new group.
Yeah, sorry, Matt, there's a few things that you said that I want to really bring emphasis to. The first one is ultimately what we're looking to get is an answer, right? Whether it's a yes, I want to meet with you, or if it's a no, you're not a fit for our fund, get an answer. The worst thing that you can have is no response. Um, as you follow up, it's important that you don't just say, second request, hey, you didn't respond to my first message, let's meet. Actually give additional context. And so that first message, like Matt said, is a very high overview. The second one, maybe you can dive more in depth on one particular aspect of the company, whether it's second request, more on my IP, or second request, more on our key milestones, more on recent financing, more on key opinion leaders. There's no shortage of content that you can add that one, of course, it pings your message back to the top of their inbox. So if I were to have gone in here and sent multiple tests, you'd see them all stacked underneath the other one. And so it will ping you back to the top as you're the newest message sent. But more importantly is it just provides additional reason for that company to meet with you, and it shows you've done your homework. Um, Matt and I can log in here, and we do log into anybody's accounts and see from an investor side they will have hundreds of meeting requests of people who have sent them meeting requests to meet at RESI, but you can tell they haven't done their homework at all because it's a company that's very out of line with the scope. And so,
Mhm.
one, your message may just be drowned out by a number of other people messaging them. And so it's useful to come to the top, but also when they then do click on it and they see that you are a fit, both because of your messaging as well as they can come in here and click in on your profile, it will show them why they should meet with you.
Mm. There's one other thing that I'll just sort of illustrate this sort of method or this whole point. I was working with a CEO who was new to both to fundraising and actually to the company that she joined. And she was interested to go to RESI when we hosted it in Boston last fall. And lo and behold, you after the show closes, we get the data back, and she had managed to schedule 20 meetings during the in-person part of the event. And I asked her how. And she kind of just shrugged her shoulders and said, "I don't know. I just did what you told me to do," which was the four-step program. was send an email, follow up with a second, a third, and a fourth that says, "This is the last email you'll hear from me." She didn't know how to do that. She didn't create that program all by herself. She just followed the steps, and it worked very well for her.
We regularly see companies go from having 3 to 5 meetings at RESI to implementing this method and having 15 meetings plus. It is surprising how effectively it works. And so we highly could not recommend more incorporating that yourselves. We have a document that everyone will have received when they registered for RESI as part of the registration. It gives you a hyperlink and a URL to click on this document called the RESI Survival Guide. Matt and I will also send it out after this, but it walks through that message sequence in a written format. And so go look at it. It'll give you an example, and then you can build it out to match your own company. And so before moving on completely, there are a few technical features that I want to point out in this messaging. We have now opened partnering 8 weeks early, and we will keep the partnering system open typically 4 weeks after the event. And so at that point, you probably will have had a number of messages with a lot of different people that you may want to keep for reference. You can always come up here and there's this export feature, and you can download all of your messaging, and I won't open it, but you can download all of your messaging into an Excel format. That way, if you use any kind of CRM to manage your investor outreach, you can then import all of that context. And then you can also, within a particular meeting, here you see it says requested. Once the investor has gone in and either accepted or declined it, it will change based off of what they've selected. Um, if for some reason it appears on your agenda, and it will appear automatically once it gets scheduled, at a time that you don't want, you can always, there will be a button that pops up here for accepted meetings to request reschedule. Or if you want to add a participant or remove a participant later on, you can always make changes to that meeting here. Perfect. And so Matt and I look forward to seeing everybody at RESI. We've still got a few more minutes left, and if there are anybody with questions, now is a great time to ask them. Again, we'll send this out in a recording. We're 8 weeks early. Partnering activity will probably start to pick up pretty drastically around 5 to 4 weeks. It typically happens a little bit earlier with bio in town. If there are any companies out there that are interested and have not registered, please reach out to Matt and I. We can make sure to get you either registered for standard partnering or for the pitch opportunity, which closes this Friday. Perfect. We'll keep it open for another minute just in case anybody does have any questions. And if not, we certainly look forward to seeing everybody in San Diego. I will put my email in the chat. And if anybody has a question that they can't think of now, but they want to ask me, there's my email. Um, please reach out. And so thank you all. Bye.